All right. Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining us today for our Chat with Coaches live stream. For those of you joining us live, welcome and thank you for tuning in. For those of you joining after the fact, thanks for tuning in as well and watching it after. I hope this is going to be a good one for you. We talked about this briefly and touched on it a few weeks ago. But Naheed, you want to tell us more about the topic for today?
Yeah, first and foremost, welcome back to you, right? We missed you last time when we did our money map, so it's nice to have my co host back and somebody to talk to. But today I want to talk about a subject that I'm hearing a lot of, and frankly, I'm feeling within myself as well. And hear me out on this one, because when you first hear it, you might not feel like it's relevant to you, but this is all about where in your life do you have this mindset that you need to work hard in order to deserve something. We have a lot of pride when we work really hard and we really push ourselves, and then we're like, oh, look, we achieved something big as a result of it. But then, are there other places in our lives that we're using that same mindset and we're just not allowing things to come easily? It's just not worth it, in other words, if it comes easily. Drew, I don't know. Have you ever felt that way where you have to push really hard, otherwise the result is not worth it?
Yeah, no, I mean, for me, it's a little yes and no. So it's a little bit different when I experience it. For me, it's kind of like there are moments as the leader of my business, as my business, it's my business, so I got to figure out, what I need to be doing. And sometimes I feel like I should be doing more
Mm-hmm.
in order for my business to feel like I'm worth it, like to feel like I'm doing something, like I'm actually running this business. Like, okay, like what am I doing now? Like every second has to be accounted for, or it's like I'm not doing enough, right? I'm not owning this enough, and I'm not going to deserve success as a result of that. And I think that comes into play a lot of times with other business owners and with other leaders in organizations as you get as you go from that. I think it's transitioning from that mindset of an individual contributor, or like someone who's constantly getting paid, by hour, or getting tracking your hour, checking your tasks, to a situation where you're on a higher level, right? You're it's a higher level position, so you're looking at things from a different perspective, from a more strategic point of view, where you don't have to count every minute, you don't have to invest every cent of energy into things that much, and so it's like you can still value the outcome, right? You can still value the results you're getting without having to work ridiculously hard all the time.
Right. That's like that hamster mindset, right? For anybody who's been part of corporate America, we both have been. We had to track our time, and it felt like you were on that hamster wheel. If you got off that hamster wheel, it was like there was a tiny little whip that kind of came right down on your knuckles, right? I don't know if you went to Catholic school. I got knuckled quite a few times with wooden spoon, not spoon, sorry, with wooden ruler, because the moment you stop working, then all of a sudden you're taking a break. You shouldn't be taking a break. You got to be working. And what's wrong with you if you're not working on a regular basis? And you're absolutely right. That mindset is not the same mindset as you move forward, because it's about how do you work effectively? What's the best way for you to work? And for some people, working more in the morning hours, sometimes more in the afternoon or evening hours, but it's not necessarily work continually 8 hours, 10 hours, whatever that day is. But I'll tell you this, the reason why I brought this up is not so much the feeling about I have to work every minute of the day. I think a lot of us have that, and it's sort of a kissing cousin to what I'm proposing. What I'm suggesting is that I work with clients who have the opportunity to create exactly what it is they've come to me for: ease, joy, money, success, without killing themselves, right? That's what I do. That's really what I encourage people to come to me for. And when it's right there, it's within their grasp, then all of a sudden, when things begin to line up for them so that it's like boom, 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 they pull back because the belief in their head is that was too easy. Their entire identity is wrapped up on working hard, making it full of effort, struggles, so that at the end of the day, they can say that they've achieved something big, as opposed to just taking something that's dropping in your lap every now and then, it does, and say, all right, thanks very much. Let me accept it and move on. And I find that to be very prevalent amongst people that I've been talking to recently.
Yeah, and as you're saying that, it makes me realize that I think about from a different perspective, from a little bit of a shift, right? Like if they've been struggling for so long, then does it really drop in their lap, or do they struggle for so long to get it to them, so that the point where they actually got it, right? So they struggled to get it, and now they have it. So it's not so much that they dropped in their lap; it's that they worked for it and they finally got it. But when you have that, I think that it's just this idea of like you said, the identity is wrapped up not in getting the thing, but in pursuing the thing. If
Mm-hmm.
you struggle so hard to get what you want, and then now that you have it, what do you do with it? It's like, oh well, I wanted this thing so badly. I think of like when I was a kid, right? And I wanted the toy so badly, and I was like, there's one toy that I was like, I really want this toy, so I want to ask my parents for it so much, over and over and over again. I asked them for it, and then I finally get it, and I'm like super excited at first, and then I'm like, okay, I'll play with it for a little bit, and then I was like, okay, well, now I want the next thing, and so I got to struggle. So it's like the identity is wrapped up not in the achieving of the thing, but in the struggle for the thing. So people, and sometimes I feel like people they want the mentality of like they want to be able to say, "Oh, I'm working so hard, I'm struggling so hard. Oh, it's always a struggle. It's always a struggle," and they either they feel guilty or they feel something. They feel a certain way about being able to say, "I finally got what I wanted. I'm where I worked so hard for this, and now I've achieved it." It's almost that part I find myself falling into that trap of like not wanting to say that I'm where I want to be, even though I'm not where I want to be fully long term, but I'm where I need to be right now.
Yeah, absolutely. All of this is part of how we identify with ourselves. So let me just give you a quick example. When I used to work in corporate America, one of the partners in my company, he was telling us about how he had gone to this camp with his kids, and throughout the entire time he was working on various engagements, and you could tell that he had a sense of pride for how much work he was doing, but he also had a huge amount of frustration because he went to this camp with the idea that he would be able to unplug and actually spend time with his kids. But the identity inside of him is that I got to work hard. He was one of those workhorse type of partners. And one day I asked him, I said, what would happen if you actually took some time off and not have to push yourself quite so much? And it kind of was a completely different way for him of looking at things because the whole organization was set up with achievement, pushing. How much are you going to sacrifice of yourself for the quote unquote greater good? But really, greater good was really the good for the company, not for you, right? At the end of the day. And in order to continue with that kind of paradigm, you have to fall into that mindset. Because if you don't, you're not going to stick around and you're not going to give what the company's searching for, which is 110% of you. And I think that so many of us do that without recognizing that this is what we're doing. If that's the right choice for you, that's a totally different matter. But if you're doing it because you feel like there's no other alternative, that's when we get resentful, angry, burned out, overwhelmed, and all those types of things, which I know I certainly felt as well.
Yeah, no, and what you said is like right. And they're not doing it for themselves. They're doing it for what everyone else thinks, right? It's the idea. I mean, it's a very Desi mentality. What will everyone say? If I'm not working hard, what will everyone say? I have to keep up appearances, and like everyone has to see that I'm working hard. It's not even that you're working hard. It's like everyone has to see that you're working hard. You have to show everyone that how hard you're working, how much you're struggling to get what you want to get, because it's got to be that's got to be part of the story. Otherwise, what will they say? If you got it too easy, then it's like, oh, they'll talk about how easy you got it, and you have to always justify yourself, like, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm busy all the time. It doesn't have to be that way necessarily, right? And I think to your point about the being good for the company, not being good for you, there's always a balance, right? There's always a balance. You can't put yourself to the point where you're super selfish and ignore everybody else in the company, and at the same time, you can't put the company first to the point where you ignore yourself completely. It's going to be a moment by moment decision. It's not going to be an absolute. But I think that the trap people fall in is exactly what you said. Is I have to keep showing everyone that how hard I'm working. It's the culture of working super hard just to work hard. It's the culture of busyness, not productivity, right? It's like staying busy but not being productive. You can be busy all the time and not get a damn thing done. But if you're productive, chances are you're probably going to finish early. Like I remember when I was one of the first like jobs I had out of school was like I was a temp. I worked for temp agency, and they put me on this 2-week assignment at this company, and I didn't understand how the world worked in terms of, at that time, right? I'm like, okay, they need to get this work done, so my job is to get this work done. And they gave me the assignment the first day. I finished it in 4 hours. Okay, I went back and I was like, hey, I'm done. They're like, you're done with what? I'm like, I'm done with the assignment you gave me. Here's the results. And they're like, how'd you finish it so fast? And I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, this is 2 weeks worth of work. I'm like, how is this 2 weeks? I did it in 4 hours. And they're like, okay, well, we don't have anything else for you right now. We'll let you know if we have more for you this afternoon or whatever. But, cool. All right, fine. So I just kind of chilled for the next 4 hours. Came out the next day. I came out for like maybe 2 days more. And then the temp agent called me and they're like, hey, they don't have anything else for you to do. Why'd you finish your work so fast? I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I don't want to draw that out for 2 weeks. It doesn't make, I didn't, first of all, I didn't know that I had to do that. I thought that was the first in like a long line of assignments for me to do. But they literally hired me for that short period of time. I didn't realize at the time that I lost the temp agency money by working too fast because they get paid by the hour, right? I thought I was being good by doing, getting everything done and being productive. And so it's a matter of perspective, and it's really interesting because people build their whole businesses on staying busy and not being productive.
Yeah, so for me and in my previous experiences, the huge big thing everybody would gripe about is how late we had to work. But here's what started to happen, and I had to catch myself. Sure, we had times when we had to work late. Because we were working late into the evening, then our morning hours began to slide. So first, it's like 7:30, then it became 8:30, and then it was getting actually closer to 10. So first and foremost, people are showing in between 9:30 and 10. Then on top of that, there are all these interruptions that take place because in our head, we're working so long. So we give ourselves permission to not be effective, as exactly what you said. We're not focused on what we're doing, which of course then extends our day even more. And then it starts that whole new cycle again. It's like, well, we're working so hard. We're there every day. We're there on the weekends, but we're working so hard. But we're not being mindful of how much time we're actually spending on our tasks amongst all the other things that we're also doing. And there are times when it was just really crazy busy. So that's there too. But during the slightly downturns, we had gotten into our head that we're working so long, which means we would just take our foot bit by bit off the pedal. And I know I had to get myself back on it because when I come back to work on time, for me it used to be 7:30 in the morning, then there was a likelihood of leaving by 6:30, whatever it happens to be, if I'm paying really close attention to what I'm doing and not sitting there, twiddling. Not that I was twiddling, but had to be more mindful of my timing.
Yeah, 7:30. Getting up to get to work by 7:30 in the morning is that's my nightmare. That's not what I enjoy.
I'm a morning person.
I'm
I
not
cannot
a morning
stay
person
late.
at all. Not a morning person. Not even close. Getting to work at 8:30 was painful for me back in the day when I worked at 9 to 5. That's another reason why I enjoy my own business because I can set my own hours.
I used to wake up at 4:30 to get to work by
Nope.
7:30.
That is never happening in my life. Not even once. Maybe if I go on like a really cool.
I do exercise because I could never get to exercise at night and then go to work.
Nope, not functional in the morning. That early, especially. I'm not that functional. No.
Okay.
Never gonna happen.
So everybody, do not call Drew first thing in the morning, or maybe just call him first thing in the morning. I don't know, whatever your relationship is with him.
Text me. I will text you back or call you as soon as I get up. No, but it's to your point though. Like exactly. It's like it's again keeping up appearances. It's the idea of like, oh, we got to show everybody that we're all doing the same thing. It reminds me of that episode of Seinfeld. Of course, I had to throw in TV reference somehow. Where George leaves his car at work. And
I remember that one.
Oh my God, you know the reference?
He would I don't know the rest of the story, but the idea was people would think that he would be there first thing in the morning, last thing in the evening, because he would leave his car overnight.
Yeah, and so he had to pay someone because the birds started crapping on his car, so he had to pay someone to clean his car, so it looked like he wasn't just leaving his car there all the time. So he got like really big recognition for being there early in the morning and staying late, and it was hilarious because he wasn't doing anything, right? But he's getting a lot of recognition for that, and that's just kind of that's how ridiculous corporate America can be. On the government contracting side of things, that's where I spent a lot of my time. It was something where I was like sitting there working. You have to log all your hours, right? You have to assign hours to different contracts and those kind of things. And it's like, okay, I have these hours of this contract, this hours of that contract, but I pride myself on being very efficient when I do stuff, right? I get things done as quickly as possible, as efficiently as I can, and effectively, but efficiently as well. And so I would get stuff done a lot quicker than they want me to, because they want to build the government. They want to keep building the government over and over again for ridiculous stuff. And I'm like, dude, this doesn't make sense. Like, why are we building them for stuff we can get done in half an hour for like 2 hours? And they're like, well, if we don't spend the money, someone else will. That was their answer. It's like, if we don't get the money, someone else will. I'm like, really? That's the way we're looking at this? Okay, cool. All right, fine. Whatever. And now as a business owner, it's like, I don't agree with that approach at all, but I get the idea, but it still doesn't make sense. It's still not something I want to invest in terms of like the way I want to do my business that way. You know what I mean? If I can do something for someone in 30 minutes, I'm going to get it, versus like 3 hours, I'm going to get it done in 30 minutes. Because that's just a waste of my time at that point too. I don't care how much.
Coming from a very place of lack.
100%. And I don't want to waste my time and draw it out, because I'm like, I don't want to sit there and just, let me do this as slowly as I possibly can. I like efficiency. The sooner I get done, the sooner I can do other things,
I have to say, I've not been in that situation. We are, where I used to work, we used to have we were judged on our efficiency, how much time it was going to take us for a particular task. So we never had the luxury of padding our hours, not much anyway, but I get it, because that's exactly what it is. People have these preset mindsets, and that's when people do really well, right? Because when, the Pareto's 80-20 or 20-80% rule, however you want to look at it, the people who are not willing to stay with that paradigm, they're like, something's wrong over here and I'm not going to follow it for the sake of following it. They're the ones who kind of break out of these packs. They're the ones who actually be able to say that, okay, let me take what I know to be true and really push that. And that kind of, let's go back to the initial point of this conversation, which is identity in keeping things hard. The people who are making huge strides, they take their wins any way they can get them. Sometimes it's going to be hard. It's going to take effort. It's going to take, I wouldn't say struggle, but there's a path to get there from point A to point B to point C. And there are other times when things are just going to fall in your lap and they're just going to say, thank you very much, really appreciate it, and move right along instead of devaluing it. And that's what we talked about actually the last time we spoke, is of not valuing what you get easily the same amount as you value something that you worked really hard for.
Yeah. And I still have a problem with that phrase, falling into your lap, because I still think like it doesn't just fall into your lap, right? You put in all the years or X amount of time work up to this point. That still matters to something, right? Just because you're not still struggling for it. Like where's the line? Like, do you need to struggle for 5 years, or is it 5.5, or is it 5 years and 9 months and 3 days? Where's the line where you feel like you actually have done enough to achieve this thing, right?
I get your point. You have to have done some work, and you're now really just recognizing the fruits of that labor. Right. But occasionally, without putting a lot of extra effort, something can fall in. That's really what I mean. But you have to do you gotta, if you're going to be a business owner, you gotta have your website up. You're gonna have to let people know that this is what you're doing before somebody's just going to show up for you.
Exactly. No, and I wasn't criticizing you as much as everyone else, like listening in the way that they think about that.
Right.
It's like the investment you've already put into it matters. It counts, right? So people always think like, oh, like for example, I know one of my previous clients just now, he had a great opportunity for a big sale, right? A really big sale for his company. And he was like, oh my God, I got to do all this stuff or whatever. And then ended up going really well. And he was just like, he's like, oh, that was really easy. And I was like, he wasn't complaining. He was like, oh, that was surprisingly easy. I'm like, no, that's great. That's awesome. He's like, I was almost too easy. I'm like, was it though? Because what about all the other stuff that you did before this that, for this specific sale, it was relatively straightforward, right? But all the years you put into this business before this, that counts for something, right? That made it easier. If you didn't put the time in, that energy, that effort to grow yourself, to build yourself up, it wouldn't have been this easy, right? So you prepped for this whether you knew it or not.
Yes. So, which reminds me of what my coach says. So I have a coach, Jeff Miller, and the reason also I brought this topic up was because I felt this within myself. I was doing these workshops and I was like, oh, wow, this actually turned out rather easily. And he reminded me of Malcolm Gladwell's book, where the tipping point, right? So the idea is that once you put in this, according to Gladwell, he's done this research and it's about 10,000 hours of work, not not specifically to one task, but work to be able to build you up, build your repertoire up, your toolkit up, whatever it happens to be, then you're at that place where things are beginning to move and shape for you because you've put in, as you said, incrementally the effort. And so you said, it's not like it was easy. You did the work. You're at that place now where you've done your 10,000 hours. So now celebrate it. Don't feel like you're back in the beginning all over again.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. No, so in terms of things people can start doing for themselves, right? I mean, what can people start on your side of things? I have my thoughts, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you tell people, how you tell folks to account for this and do stuff for themselves to kind of get them out of that mindset. That what will people think? Like I got to keep up the appearances mindset.
First and foremost, I don't know that it's very conscious when people do this. So, step one, you got to be aware of it. Like when I
Mhm.
had this workshop and I was writing to my coach about what my response was, it was in that moment when I realized, wow, it felt really easy and that felt really odd. I wasn't even aware that I was having these thoughts. So step one is be mindful of what your thinking is. And then I liked what you're saying, which is take a moment and step back and say, okay, how much time did it take for me to get to where I am today? I've been a coach now for 8 years. And I'm now getting into more of these kinds of group workshop types of things. So it's not like it came to me overnight. So really being mindful of that. But I will also say that for many of us, that's why I work with a coach, right? That's why many people work with a coach. When we have a mindset that feels really strong inside of us, reach out to somebody and see how they can help you get beyond it. Because again, I'm going to quote my coach again, you can never see your blind spots. You can work on the things that you think are what needs to be worked on, but chances are the really deep stuff you're not even paying attention to.
Yeah, 100%. And to the idea of blind spots, I think, and this is typically a blind spot for folks, like you said. I mean, most mindset things are a blind spot for people, right? But the idea of a blind spot is you only know to check it when you know it's there, right? When you first start driving a car, if no one tells you to check your blind spots, you're gonna look at the mirror and like, okay, no one's there, I'm good to go. Let me go in the next lane, and then boom, you hit somebody. Like, oh shit, I didn't even see them. Where were they? Right? That's how blind spots work. So the first step, like you said, is building awareness around that. And the second step is going to be figuring out what you want to do about it, right? Because sometimes the blind spots are going to be things that are serving you right now. Most times they're not, but there's some things that are serving you in some ways, and you got to figure out what you want to replace that behavior with to actually still serve you a little better. And so in this situation, you think you may be getting this great benefit from everybody giving you the approval, giving the external validation. Oh yeah, good job. Yeah, you're working really hard. You're kicking your ass. You have zero time to spend with your family, and you're doing really well. Great job. We appreciate your sacrifice. And they can tell you whatever they want to tell you, but at the end of the day, does it really serve you? I think that's a good question to ask in general. Like, how is it serving you, and does it actually serve your goals, not just everybody else's? Because if you're not sitting there not assigning yourself, but setting goals for yourself, understanding what matters to you, at the end of the day, what the life you want to live looks like, you're not going to be able to even prioritize your goals appropriately to figure out what makes sense for you. And so people can just tell you anything they want. Oh yeah, great job, good job doing that, and then that thing could actually have hurt you in the long term. So with these kind of things, I tell people take a hard look at that and see what your actual values are, what your goals are, what do you want your life to look like in 3 5 years. You know what I mean? Not like what's your 5 year plan as much as what's your ideal life look like. And if you can live that, then live it. If not, then just figure it out.
Yeah, it's we're coming to that place where we really need to be mindful of what we're creating because otherwise we're living longer, we have more stress in our jobs and in our personal lives, which means we are more frustrated, more overwhelmed, more resentful, more angry. I mean, all of these things, there's more off, even though in the larger scheme of things, the quality of our standard of living is increasing. So, on the one hand, we're becoming more prosperous, but on the other hand, so many of us, from a mental and emotional standpoint, are going downhill at a younger age, that too. So, it's really important for us to start paying attention us being the driver to whatever extent we feel like in that moment, right? We can't always be it in every single moment. But if you're not driving your future and your current now, someone else is. And that's what brings up all of that emotion.
Yeah, exactly. And I do want to draw a distinction between quality of life and cost of life. Cost of life is going up. Quality of life, I don't know that that's necessarily going up as much as cost of life, because it definitely is. We're getting more fancy gadgets. We're getting more, expensive cars, expensive houses, expensive things in general, just because one, inflation is going up, but in general. But are we really, like, to your point though, are we really living a better quality life if mental health is going down, right? I mean, you have Simone Biles, who just exited the Olympics because of mental health. You had Naomi Osaka, who did the same thing with the French Open. These are world class athletes, right? Doing amazing things, and they're both exiting these massive, career making events for themselves because they want to take care of their mental health, which is amazing. And I think that's a huge, really courageous step that they're both taking. At the same time, though, they're getting a lot of backlash from obviously from the peanut gallery, right? And I think of the idea of the man in the arena, right? The whole Roosevelt thing. I don't know if you're familiar with that at all, but the man in the arena is like the whole. I have the thing on the wall right there. It's from the Republic. It's the yellowish one right there. Roosevelt said it, and it's just like the idea is the people in the arena, the gladiators. He's referring to like gladiators, right? And the metaphor is you're the gladiator in your life. You can choose to be a gladiator, or you can choose to be an observer, criticizing everyone, criticizing everything happening in the world, or you can actually be on the field in the arena doing stuff and getting stuff done. And I've always tried to take the route of being the guy in the arena, right? Like people are gonna criticize. They're always gonna talk stuff. People are always gonna talk about it. I was telling a client the other day, people will always talk stuff, they'll always gossip, but who cares? Because guess what? The next week they're going to talking about someone else. If they're talking about you now, they're talking about someone else the week after, and
Right.
they have very short term memory.
Very short-term memory, and also these are not the people that are moving civilization forward.
No,
That's
they're actually
actually
holding us back.
right. I was talking to a very young client of mine, 29 years old. She's on fire. I'm amazed at all the things that she's doing. And she always felt like an outsider because the rest of her family is not like that. And I reminded her that, hey, when you think about it, just a few thousand years ago, we were hunter gatherers. We got to where we are not because of the people who are sitting at the back waiting for someone else to do the inventions, waiting for someone else to come up with that good idea. It was because of people like you who are pushing forward, coming up with new ideas, pushing the boundaries in whichever way. That's how civilization moves forward. So yeah, it's unfortunate that some people haven't figured that one out yet.
Yeah, I agree. And I think those people, I don't think it's so much that they haven't figured it out. I don't think they want to figure it out, right? It's because it is easier. It's easier to sit there and criticize. It is, right? It's much easier to sit back and like, oh, well, here's all the things you're doing wrong. But then when you ask them to actually do those things, they can't. And that's the ultimate thing, because they don't actually know how to do that, but it's easier for them to sit back and criticize. So they want to feel important. They want to feel like they're worthy of whatever, but they really can't do it themselves, and they're too lazy to get it done themselves.
So let me ask you this question. Are you familiar with this? I guess it was a 90s, 80s, or 90s boy band called the Pet Shop Boys?
I heard of it. Yeah, I've heard of
Okay.
them. I think
So when
they
I
had
was
a
young,
famous song. I think, right?
huh?
They had one. I think one famous. Was there like a one hit wonder?
Couple of hits. So West End Girls is probably the one that you
Yeah.
have heard of. Okay, so I didn't know this. So the Pet Shop Boys were actually Rolling Stones contributors, authors, or something like that. They were actually writers. Okay.
Mhm.
And apparently, they gave, I don't know if you know who Boy George is, they gave
Yeah.
him a tremendous shit for whatever reason. They didn't like his music. They thought he was horrible. They said that anybody else could do something better than this. And then, I don't know if it's connected or not, but then they decided to start their own business, their
Mhm.
own band, basically. And they went back and they actually apologized to him because it's
Hmm.
so much easier when you're sitting on the sidelines to say, oh, this is so easy. I
Yeah.
could do better. I mean, I have this issue with sports commentators. I don't watch sports at all, but especially all the armchair critics who are, I tell my husband this. I'm like, what gives you the right to criticize? You're not even out there in the heat, the cold, or anything, and you're sitting here criticizing.
Yeah.
So yeah. I get
Yeah.
that.
No, and that's a great analogy, because everyone wants to be that armchair critic. They always want to be that person saying, "Oh, hey, this person's doing that or whatever." Like, "Oh, why didn't they make that play?" Like, "Oh, that's a horrible play. This guy sucks." "Oh my God, you're the worst." But at the same time, 10 seconds later, that guy's gonna make a play. We're like, "Oh yeah, he's awesome. He's great. Yeah, he made a great play." It's like, okay, now you go out there and try that.
Yeah,
Let's see what
exactly.
happens.
You go out there and do a tenth of what they're doing.
Right. Anyway, but it cracks me up. Like, people are the commentators are very interesting and funny to listen to.
I think that should be one of our future broadcasts. On the commentators that we have in our lives, some of them from the past whose messages are still in our head, and also the future commentators, people who we think might judge, and we don't even know if they're actually judging us.
Yeah, I'm done with that. We can do that next time for sure.
Okay. And I wanted to say we had a few people actually posting, and we appreciate that. So
Darius, Josh, thanks for tuning in, guys.
yeah,
Really appreciate
Darius,
it.
you said earlier, and recency bias. Yes, absolutely. So looking
100%.
forward to having another conversation on this. And if anybody wants to post something, have any questions, any experiences, we'd love to be able to include that in our conversation.
Absolutely. And yeah, and let us know if there are topics you want us to cover or cover more deeply next time. Scenarios we can break down, those kind of things. We did one of those a few months ago, which is kind of fun, breaking down a scenario. So yeah, feel free to let us know what you guys want to see more of or less of, and we'll be happy to do it. Anything you
And
want to close with?
hopefully it will be more of us and not less of us.
Yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed. Anything you want to close with, Naheed? Anything last thoughts?
Um, just have fun. We get so serious sometimes. Have fun.
I like it. I think that's great. Well, let's end on that. Have fun, guys. Take care. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the share button. Share with someone who you think would be valuable to hear this. And hit the like button. That helps a lot with these videos. Let us know what you want to see. Hit the comment. And yeah, we'll see you guys next time. See you in 2 weeks. And I'll see you on Monday for Meaningful Monday. Take care, guys.